got the biggest egg timer in the world. Right. Okay. I'm going to try and make this as quick as possible. So my job tonight is to talk you through a whistle-stop tour on assisted sales, and I basically look at how it fits into your overall strategy. So I usually, when I cover this in any kind of detail, it takes me a month. But because I have a program that covers this, so I'm going to try and do it justice in a really quick space of time. So in terms of an assisted sale, let's not get too fancy schmancy. An assisted sale is just a fancy way, I don't know why it's jumping forward, is a fancy way of me. Oh God, stop it now. See, tech and me. It's a fancy way of helping a seller get rid of a property they don't want without you being an agent or a sourcer. Now, a lot of people use an assisted sale as a way to do a fix up and flip. But that's all it is. It literally is. You're going to work with a seller to get rid of a property. And simply speaking, when I do an assisted sale, I look at it this way: you buddy up with the seller, or a family who have a property to get rid of, and there are lots and lots of exits. I'm going to show you kind of some exits later, but in terms of comparing it to, and I'm doing this real quick because I think I've got 20 minutes. So you're buddying up with a seller without you being an agent, without you being a sourcer. You are literally sitting around the table with them with your arms around them going, let's get rid of this property, or let's do something with this asset, this piece of land or whatever, because you can use it for a lot of things. In terms of comparing it to existing strategies, if you compared it to something like BMV, I don't know why this thing's jumping, it's driving me nuts already. But BMV, sort of rent-to-rent strategy, any of the strategies where you're the other side of the table, it's the investor's needs first, versus assisted sales. You can actually look at what the seller's needs are, and you're trying to come together in some time of agreement about what you're going to do. Again, BMV, it tends to be the investor's price, the investor's terms, even though someone has to agree, but it tends to be a bit more combative if you're going to be one of those guys that's basically going to go for the jugular and say, that's our price, that's our walk away. So assisted sales enable you to negotiate a wee bit more. And the reason for that is you're not necessarily going to buy the whole property outright to get started. So you can save on a lot of the upfront costs that front load what your profit, they eat away at your profit because they come at the front, with things like your finance costs and all that. BMV, rent to rent, other strategies tend to be the investor's time scale. We complete when we complete, albeit that sometimes it can be quickly. And an assisted sale, I would say you tend to be, again, a bit more of a negotiation about what you've both agreed. Because in actual fact, you might want to string the time scale out a wee bit, and your seller might well be very, very happy to do something with that. BMV, rent-to-rent strategy, if you're doing stuff, you do need finance. You will need some finance for assisted sales, but you don't necessarily need a mortgage. So think about this as a nice way of using an option on a property. And it would tend to be a shorter time scale. And I'm going to keep it simple tonight because we could go through all sorts of rabbit holes. And I know Paul and I were talking about all sorts of stuff when I was up in the Northeast recently. There are lots of ways you can use things under the tag of an assisted sale to do some really cool stuff with property and with assets that benefit you and the seller. I would say at the minute in the current market, 1 in 100 leads, even if you're knocking them out the park and you've got a really good sales pipeline or whatever, the reality is you may not close on a lot of them because simply either the seller or you cannot take the price that you agree. And if you are incorporating something like an assisted sale and you add in a couple of little subtle nuances, you might raise that to 10 deals in 100 good quality, opportunities. Sometimes there's a lot of resistance to the let's just, pile them high and sell them cheap sort of stuff. And I find when I say to someone, hey, this solves your problem, but it also solves part of mine, there tends to be slightly less resistance. I'm not going to say there's no resistance, because some people say they don't understand it. And that's usually because people use terms like assisted sales. I'm using this term because it's kind of the general understanding of what we mean in the industry by assisted sale. But when I am talking to a seller, I don't use those terms. I simply say, what's the problem that needs to be solved? I am watching my little clock here because I have no concept of time. So the benefit to you and the client is it tends to be a bit less confrontational. No one has to specifically lose. Yes, there will always be a negotiation on price and timescale and other things, but the reality is you do not have to drive the hardest bargain. You don't need a 40% discount. If guys get it, they get it. But reality is with an assisted sale, you've got a lot more things that you can do. The structure's in place, you know, in terms of what it is. Lots of people have been doing this type of strategy for a very long time and calling it something else. So people will hear the phrase an exchange with delayed completion. I don't always exchange on properties. I might simply have a piece of paper in place, and I'll talk about that in a moment. So solicitors, especially now, 10 years ago, maybe less familiar, 20 years ago, definitely less familiar, but now more people, and especially in the commercial sector, are very familiar with doing stuff like this. It's very not sleazy. I'm not a really sleazy person. I think most people I know in this group are not sleazy, and we feel a bit odd sometimes when you get into that confrontational negotiation scenario where it just feels like you're having to really drive a hard bargain, and relatively quick to set up, because as long as you have got some finance in place, I know I said no money, but you don't necessarily need £250,000 because it depends on the size of the deals. And again, I'll just show you some real simple ones. I will do the whole disclaimer stuff because it's not a magical formula. It takes time for you to find the right opportunities to fit who you are and what you are doing. I don't know what your financial situation is. I don't know what your market is. I don't know what your particular strategy is. So it is up to you to work out how this fits in with what you're doing. But I do know Mr. Million, who is here, and many other guys, maybe even Darren, because I think we've all done option type stuff, will know how this works. It tends to be a capital strategy. So it's not really about you holding onto your property forever and getting cash flow out of it. That might be the back end. But personally speaking, I'm keeping this simple, and the simplest version of an assisted sale is where you get cash out of it, you move on, you do your next deal. You definitely need to have consistency and persistence, because that's the payout. And I'll say to you now, I'll reiterate this later, there are some rules. I am going to show you 7 stages that I use and I stick to, and every time I've broken my own rule, it has bit me on the arse. So when I teach this, when I share this with people, I say stick to the damn rules. And the damn rules are pretty fundamental stuff, but it's very easy to overlook them in the process of trying to get to a payday. I have a little mantra, and that's new leads, old leads, more leads. So I'll come back to that again. And 80% of people will start the process off, they won't follow through, and in actual fact, they'll not believe that it's possible to get someone to agree to do this, which is why it's very handy. All of these are property, with the exception of one, I don't know how that's crept in there, but all of these are properties that I've done assisted sales on. This was 6 flats, semi-detached. This was it had been a converted garage, it was converted into a house. The sky's the limit. It doesn't really matter what size property, because it's dependent on what your exit is. And for me, an assisted sale is something that I tend to do with something I can get rid of. It's not a property I'm necessarily going to hold on to, because if I was going to hold on to it, I might do an option, or I might just buy it. And it works without me doing too much social proof stuff. One of the guys that I've known in this, Phil, has been a friend of mine for 17 years. So he's not even somebody I would call a student of mine. I showed him how to use an assisted sale. I have no idea what this is jumping, it's annoying me. Showed Phil how to do an assisted sale, helping a family who were facing repossession. And it's a subject dear to my heart, which is why I use assisted sales a lot in the stuff that I do on repossessions. And the guys that are working with us in repossession rescue, that is one of the strategies I'm going to be helping them understand better, because it has real power if you need to buy time and you're not always sure exactly what the exit is going to be straight away. So in Phil's case, he had a very good relationship with an estate agent. He used to be a mortgage broker himself. If anybody wants to look him up, you could speak to him, he'll tell you how he did these, and he's done more since that. And I simply gave him the rules. I just said, look, you need to do the minimum to the property. You need to help the people move out so it's vacant. Ideally pay their move out fees so that you have what effectively is an unencumbered property, but not really. Take control of it, get it done up tidy, but not necessarily spending huge amount of money on it. and get it away at a reasonable price that will get interest. And it was sold by the same agent who introduced it. And they were very pleased because they were going to lose it through repossession. And even overseas, Brian, I've known Brian again. This is someone I've known, not big student stuff, but this is someone I've known for probably 10, 12 years now. And Brian lives overseas now. In fact, I think he lives in Colombia. Don't make any reference to what he's doing in Colombia, but he lives in Colombia. And he rang me up and he said, Trish, this is really weird because his wife speaks Spanish. And he had someone, his wife speaks Spanish and French, and he had someone in America, and he had a seller in France. And he basically said, is there any way you think I could do this? And he actually did. He managed to get the property done and got one person to agree to sell the property, got one person to agree to buy the property, and did an assisted sale with it. And while he was sat in Colombia. So there's 7 stages. How am I doing for time, guys? Am I okay? So the 7 stages to assisted sales. The first stage is to find the sellers. So I'm going to give you little, oh, my husband's brought me gin. You probably shouldn't be recording this bit, but never mind. You find the seller, agree the terms, sign the heads of terms, and indeed get the contracts done. You do what you need to do to the property, depending on your exit, you market it, you get some offers in and you handle the offers, handle the sale process and completion. Now, that's the 7 stages. That sounds like every convent in the river was, but there's little subtle things along the way here that I've learned over the years since I started doing assisted sales that just makes life that wee bit easier. The first one is finding leads. People have been asking me that this week about repossession rescue. So I'm going to share, I packed everything into this so your heads will be spinning. 5 ways to find leads: landlords, and this is my little model: landlords, estate agents, advertising, direct to seller, social networks, including social media, and other sources. If you are speaking on a regular basis and marketing on a regular basis and networking on a regular basis with people in like landlords and estate agents and sourcers, they will come across opportunities for you to do assisted sales. You do not have to have fancy schmancy marketing. You simply have to be good at networking and understanding that lots of people want to get rid of properties, and they're often looking for someone to talk to and be the person they want to talk to. I haven't got time to go through every single stage of this. Guys who are on repossession rescue will have more detail on this anyway, but I categorize my activity around those 5 key areas of strategy and tactics to find leads. And it's easy to remember. Just remember, Trish's model is leads. And if you're stuck one day, you go, have I spoken to landlords? Have I networked with estate agents? Have I done some advertising? Have I marketed myself in any way so people know I exist? Have I got some strategy for getting to direct to sellers, which will simply include keeping an eye on certain properties that might be your ideal target in an area? And am I speaking to other sourcers? Because I know sourcers get a bad rap a lot of the time. But the reality is a lot of sourcers out there are actually doing a lot of the grunt work and the legwork for leads and opportunities that they don't know how to close. And if you know how to close them, hey, you know, if someone just hands me the opportunity to do it, I will do it. Stage 2 is agreeing the terms. And I'm going to make this dead simple. The only job that you have in the process of agreeing terms is to negotiate with the seller what the terms are of that agreement. You honestly, it is not for you to start worrying about what the paperwork looks like, even though I provide people with copies of what an assisted sale or an option and whatever type paperwork would look like. The thing you have to be good at to agree terms is, again, another little model of mine. And this comes from customer care. Basically, this is the work that I used to do as a consultant in the NHS and what have you, and developed a model called Cuddles. Easy to remember: cuddle your client, love your clients, and it is much easier for them to love you back and want to do business. Don't worry if I'm talking at a million miles an hour, because I have a little handout that you guys will be able to get that covers these 7 stages and covers this Cuddles model. So Cuddles is easy to remember. Again, K is know your client. Who are they? Are they a decision maker? Are they the one that owns the property? Are they representing the person that owns the property? Because if you aren't talking to the decision maker or the person who owns the property, or indeed both, and you're not talking to the person who has influence, then everything else that happens will fall down at some point. And it's amazing to me how we spend a lot of time negotiating and get fed up that we've wasted our time. But the reason we wasted our time is we haven't answered that number one thing, is who am I actually talking to? And do they have the authority, the ability, and the willingness? I use the phrase ready, able, and willing. Are they ready? Are they able? And are they willing to do what we need to do to help them, to help me? The U is understand what they want. We talk about people's needs, what they need, what they need, what they need. Ultimately, even if we don't agree that what they say they want is what they need, if you don't understand their wants, it's very difficult for you to position yourself. I'm doing hand gestures here. I don't know whether you can see me, but it's very difficult for you to see and position yourself and your options, your opportunities in a way that meets what they want. So if you're going at two completely different angles towards this person and you simply don't understand what they want, then all of the things that you offer are going from the wrong place. And in actual fact, probably why most people get upset about not being able to close is because they're trying to close stuff without completely understanding the client and understanding what that client wants and understanding if they can even deliver. The first D is describe their priority. Their priority might well be that they want to get all the cash out. Their priority might be that actually they could do without the cash, but what they really want is they want to be able to move next week. Describe their priority, not yours. Your priority might be to get the property at all costs. But if you don't understand their priority, how can you position yourself in any way, no matter what strategy you're using, how can you get them to work with you and agree to what you want? The next D is defining their motivation. Their motivation is you're testing whether or not they are up for it, dare I say this, testing. And their motivation might also be, if you look at motivation and priority, the motivation might be to move to the south of France. Their priority might be, I don't need all the money, but as long as I can be out of here in 2 weeks. So again, we're using that as a subtle way of understanding what the situation is so that we can offer solutions that match their needs and that give us what we want to. The L is limit and list the options. I don't mean options as in the strategy options, but if you fire 300 opportunities or 300 ways to solve their problem, a person will do what almost every person does when faced with too much choice, and they will do nothing. So my advice when you're doing negotiation, which again is something that I'm passionate about, the art of negotiation is the art of service. If you have gone through the first 4 parts of cuddles and you have a close enough match, it may not be a full match, but a close enough match, don't give them 500 other things to think about. Give them the one that's the closest. And then you do the next bit, which is you basically say, how does that feel? And how does that feel is an opportunity for you to shut up and allow them to feed back to you, whether you're close or whether you're a million miles away. If they go, yeah, fine, great, brilliant, you move to the next stage. When I say sign up, I mean close on that agreement. Say, okay, so we're agreed if we do this so that you can do that, you're happy to do it like this. All too often people talk themselves into a deal and back out of it on exactly the same day. I know because I've done that. So stage 3 is part of your negotiation. Once you've done that, is to get some kind of heads of agreement, also called the heads of terms. I have a little example of one there. It doesn't matter. It could be on a sheet of paper with your name, their name, as long as they're the authority person to sell it. You still need to do your due diligence. On the basis of this stage, you then take away the outline of what you've agreed, you finalize all your due diligence, and then you would go to contract. No point in going to contract until A, they've signed some kind of heads of agreement with you, because if they won't sign this, the chances are they ain't going to sign the contract that comes next, because you have to have the outline laid out clearly, simply, succinctly, in a way that they understand, so that when the paperwork arrives, it merely underpins what you've just agreed. Okay, that is your heads of term. And you take that heads of agreement to a solicitor. That's your legal bit done. Forget about the paperwork. I can show you oodles of paperwork. I can show you ones that are 500 bloody pages long. But the reality is we overcomplicate it. We start turning into barroom barristers and we absolutely balls up our own deals. Sorry, I'm trying to work out where I am. Right, so the next stage, you've done the work to the house. You've done the agreement. Maybe you've agreed that you're going to do a bit of work to the house. The seller's moved out. I prefer properties to be vacant or whatever I'm going to do. So if I'm doing a simple assisted sale, I want the owners out of the property. If I'm going to put my money into the property, I want them out. And that means I will factor into my figures the cost potentially of moving them out into rented accommodation, or in the case where they don't need money, I'm making sure that I have a property that is fit for me to do what I need to do with it. So when I've done what I need to do, that could be a very light refurb. It could be almost no refurb at all. In the case that I used when I mentioned Phil, he changed carpets, curtains. He changed, I think, some tiling in the kitchen, minimal stuff. Spent probably about £5,000 in all, including some move out costs. Made all that back and made, you know, £6 grand. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but it was super quick turnaround time, and that person recommended him to about 5 others. So marketing the property is very simple. It's, again, sticking to some basics. Before you market your property and take it out for sale, and the reason I'm teaching you this version is simply because it's the simple in-out flip type assisted sale. Price it attractively. If your exit out of an assisted sale is to sell, you want to price it attractively. In the market at the minute, you could almost, you know, stick a frock on a peg and, you know, call it whatever. But at the minute, I would say even in a hot market, you still want to make sure you've got your comparables right. You want to make that property the easiest property to buy. That doesn't necessarily mean price. It could be adding in other things into the mix. Part of your stage 3 stuff is negotiating where you've already made your profits, which is why I've said you never go to contract until all the numbers are done and both of you are satisfied and you're satisfied where you're going to make your money. The investor route is one route. I have done assisted sales where I've done an assisted sale and an investor has bought it, but I'm not a sourcer. They haven't been a client of mine. They've simply been a buyer. And if you're doing an open market flip, my advice is always this: incentivize the agent to get your property sold first and fast. And in the current market, that's probably relatively easy. When I say incentivize the agent, I don't necessarily mean you bribe them. That's not a good idea, but you can incentivize agents other ways. And for me, one of the incentives that I use is we will bring them other property, we bring them other opportunities, we'll recommend them to landlords that we use. Local advertising, I don't care if the agent is advertising, we actually also do our own marketing for properties. And the big golden rule of flipping any kind of property is you must dress that property and spec that property however you are doing it. You're dressing it for the end client. If it's £1 million house, you're dressing it for an end client, you're speccing it for an end client. So now we're on to stage 5, which is accepting the offers. And as you say, if you're going to accept offers on the property, you're going to sell it, so you're going to accept offers. People say at this point, this is when I drive a hard bargain. It's with buyers, not sellers, but that's okay. But what I would say is all the way along, transparency is it for me. When I set off, before I've even signed the contracts, when I do the heads of terms, I'm really clear with people that it's my intention, depending on the deal, that I am going to make as much money on the property as I possibly can. However, there is a sliding scale, because it could be more, it could be less, and I check that the seller is okay with that. So be honest that you're doing this to get paid, and leave yourself a suitable margin. Now, it's up to you what you believe the margin is, what the tolerance is, and what you're prepared to give away, what you're prepared to negotiate. And again, I'll talk about variations in a wee moment. But I would say speed and simplicity is absolutely the key here. Obviously, you could do much, much more fancy, more complicated, longer term deals. It's fine. You can do all of those things. I'm doing this tonight just to give you a flavor of the principles. So whether you're going to do a fix and flip, whether you're going to do a full refurb, a partial refurb, whether you're going to do a title split, whatever you're going to do, speed and simplicity is still the key for me. And when you accept an offer on the property, so someone comes in, you have a live offer. The live offer is where you need it to be. When the letters go through to the solicitor, because I always have a power of attorney on any of these properties, this is one of my golden rules. The solicitor who acts, and they act for the seller, they don't act for me, that solicitor knows from the very beginning what type of deal this is. They understand the nature of the agreement that I have, and effectively it's a joint venture with a seller. So it's just not just my heads of terms, but they have a full letter of disclosure, they have all the contract details, and if I've incurred expenses over and above what we've agreed, all of those go into the solicitor, and the seller and the solicitor are aware what's going in before completion. So handling the sale is just that. I follow up all interested parties. You never know when something's going to fall over. Someone can't get the mortgage, they can't get the finance, they change their mind. But I never allow sellers and buyers to mix. So I maintain control. Once my money's gone into someone's property in any way, shape or form, their only role is waiting for me to inform their solicitor the sale is happening, and for them to get paid on their mortgage if there is one to get settled. They don't get involved in the negotiation. They do not get involved in vetting any buyers. And again, that's a golden rule. And my rule is if they start to interfere at that point, my paperwork says that that's the point and when all of my costs are paid back to me. And then I'm out. I've broken that rule during lockdown because I felt sorry for someone. I didn't lose a lot of money on it, in inverted commas, and what I put in, but never break your own rules. So I'm sharing this as transparency here. So I act as the consultant, I act as the go-between, I act as the person through whom all decisions come. Sound like I'm a control freak, I'm not, but what I want to do is make this as smooth and easy and simple as possible. And I make sure that every single person involved, even if there's an agent, understands that my role is the pivotal point for everything else. Paperwork, documents, decisions, calls, everything goes through me, or indeed my representative. And I'm the one that asks the questions, I'm the one that defines a problem, and I'm the one that outlines the solutions. I do have to keep people on board, don't get me wrong, but I make sure if I'm handling the sale, the minute someone's put an offer in, the memorandum of sale and all that stuff, I get all of that. We don't try and hide it from the original seller. They understand and they know what price this is going through at. This is not about hiding where the money is. I am absolutely 100% transparent. And in getting paid, we all love to get paid. Why don't we love to get paid? We love it, love it, love it. And I agree, again, with all parties, what completion means. Because you could complete at the point when the property has been bought and all the money is in and what have you. But that could happen beforehand. It certainly doesn't happen after, but it could happen earlier, and it could actually be in stages as well. So I make sure that the sellers have all of the contracts, the letters, and I make sure that I bring a statement up to date, certainly before completion. If there are any new ones on the day, then we add that in, but they have a full statement showing if there's anything else. For example, that could be rent payments, it could be deposits, it could be extra costs. So we itemize those, and that is signed by the seller, because if that's coming off their price, if I've had extra costs to move them out, that might be coming off their price, or we could agree it's coming off what we get between the two. Generally speaking, it's seen as an advance, so it comes off their price. I get paid directly from the solicitor, and I get paid first and fast. Obviously, if there's a mortgage, that has to be settled first, but on the order in which it's signed up, after the mortgage or any other loans secured on the property are paid, including the solicitor's costs, my name's next. That is the order in which they agree to pay, so I know the money is coming to me first and fast. A couple of variations then. The simple assisted sale is the price that you've agreed, and the price is agreed in the house, and maybe any fee as a consultant. You could do it that way. We also have where we do a target price, so the target price could be 100,000. And if we get anything above 100,000, we get paid the difference. We do a joint venture or partnership agreement. And when I say joint ventures, we're not talking about financial joint ventures, because we talk in simple percentages. Above that price, it may be 50%. That's understandable. If you start talking about profit share and stuff, that's hard work. You're straying into FCA territory. I don't want to go there. You could do an option on it, where you have the option and you do the work and you do it later. And this fits beautifully into what we do, or what we're doing with repossession rescue, because I've used an assisted sale like this with so many cases where time, money, and everything else was of the essence. It's one of the reasons why repossession rescue exists, because we use all of those when we're talking about repossessions. And of course, you can use them to flip, but you could use them to title split, you could use them to do development, you could use them on land, you could use them on a boat, whatever you want to do. There are so many variations, but I can't cover them all tonight. It would be churlish if I did not say it doesn't go wrong, because anybody who tells you a strategy or whatever can't go wrong is talking out their backside. So I'll summarize where it tends to go wrong, and my experience of this over at least 10, 15 years of doing these. people sometimes are not motivated, or they're desperate. And those of you guys who are in repossession rescue will know that I have, in the last couple of modules that we've been doing, I've been talking about the problem with sellers who are financially desperate and motivated by money, for whatever reason that is, can often go between not making any decisions to agreeing to everything, to then keeping changing their minds, to go on out of the loop and you can't get hold of them. So that tends to be where it starts to go wrong. Or the price is wrong. You get the price wrong. You don't do your due diligence. You overspec the thing, whatever, and you realize, hey, I've overdone it. Lack of detail and losing control are the two biggest. One person that I taught this strategy to, I made it really clear, do not lose control of the deal. And he made the mistake of, on one evening when there was a viewing, he decided to go and play five-a-side football, and he allowed a buyer and the seller to go and view the property together, and simply he completely lost control of the deal, and it resulted in them pulling out. He didn't lose a lot of money, probably a couple of grand again in time, but it was more to do with the time and the effort. And I said, you broke the rule. You broke the rule, and it's not their house anymore. I mean, it is, but they've given you control over this so that you can make it happen. And the reason it falls apart is because you broke one of my rules. Clearly, if all the players aren't on the team, a key phrase that I absolutely love, and again, the guys in repossession rescue will know this, is that I say, has anything changed since we last spoke? If anybody has influence in that family, in that room, in that group, or even in that business, and you are trying to do some work with them, and someone's suddenly not on board anymore, it can completely change the dynamic, even if you've got it in writing, even if it's on a contract. There's not a contract in the world that cannot be challenged. Ask any solicitor. And if it starts to get muddy and difficult, again, I have exits planned where I am out of there and I get my money back first. If your paperwork is weak, if you're not sure what to have in it, I mean, yes, the solicitor should do that, but based on experience, you add new things based on falling in the shit, as I have done in the past. And the biggest one is when greed takes hold, even if you've been transparent and open and honest, whatever, but it happens, it doesn't happen often. Most of the people that I've helped using this strategy, even if I've just done a quick flip or done a bigger refurb on it, and they realize I've made more money on it, most people have been more than happy because the price they wanted is the price they've got or their nearabouts. And I've often gone back and written checks for extra. So what you need to get started, you need to be able to generate leads. I mean, that goes for any property business or any business. You definitely need to follow a process, especially if you're getting started with this. If you don't have some clear process, some clear systems, some clear standards to work to, you may as well just be, throwing money up against the wall. Get paperwork in place, make sure you've got a solicitor who understands what this is and the subtle variations. You're not going to teach them, you're going to say to them, this is what I'm doing, and they need you to wrap paperwork around that. It's helpful to work with solicitors who know how to do this, and particularly guys in the commercial sector, they're much more familiar with it. A couple of top tips then, and I think maybe I'm on 25 minutes and I'm probably speaking at about 140 words a minute. As I said before, new leads, old leads, more leads. This is my little mantra for when you're doing marketing. New leads are, if you get a call today, get back to that caller, because new leads are red hot. Literally, if they come in today, they're red hot. If you allow them 24 hours, 48 hours, or a whole week, they'll have gone 27 other places beforehand. Old leads is follow-up. More leads is making sure you never allow your inquiry pipeline to run dry. You look at landlords, estate agents, advertising, direct to seller, and social media, social marketing, social networks. If you're doing that every week, even in the smallest possible way, you will generate inquiries. It's not possible for you to be doing that and not generate inquiries. Be the consultant, because when you're the consultant, people value consultation rather than being the investor. They will tell you stuff they probably wouldn't tell an investor. And in actual fact, they will listen to some of the solutions you position, because when you go to a consultant, you expect to be consulted. Follow-up accounts for 50 to 70% of my leads, my inquiries, and indeed my deals. Do they all come right? No, but follow-up definitely makes a difference, because even if they didn't agree with me 6-12 months ago, even if the market's red hot right now, all they need is for 2 or 3 times for it to fall over, and they're ready to do business. If you're looking online, keywords, if you're looking on the portals, stuff that's already sold subject to contract, I'm still keeping an eye on those. If it's under offer, if it's reduced, if there's no chain, if it's a fixer-upper, I'm looking at those properties as potential useful for what I want to do. And in terms of your metrics, every week you're looking at leads, you're looking at viewings, you're looking at offers, you're looking at the ones that are becoming deals, and you're definitely looking at how well you're following up. I think that's it. If you want to find out more, that is where you can find me. I mean, you can go and find out more about assisted sales, but that's where it is. And if you want, I did have one extra slide. If you want a copy of my little checklist, which is the 7 stages laid out, and my little cuddles model, which is again just a little easy to follow thing, I have a double header PDF, and the easiest way to get that, instead of, you can obviously get them if you sign up to whatever. Please don't sign up to assisted sales, but anyway, if you want to do that, if you comment in the IP group, because let's get you guys actually interacting in the group, you can obviously you can opt into my site, but if you don't, just put a comment in the group and tag me in it and just say give me, and I'll make sure that we put that out for you guys. That is it.
Amazing.
Brilliant.
I think there was a couple of questions. We'll quickly do those because I know we're getting a bit late.
Yeah. Okay.
There was one. Where's it gone? Trish, do you use your solicitor to sell the property? That was
No,
Sarah.
no. I mean, sometimes people will ask me which solicitor I use, so that's absolutely reasonable. Sometimes people will say which solicitor, but the main thing is that if they have a family solicitor that they absolutely trust 100%, I will say, is there any reason why we can't use your guy? Because there's an element of trust there, and then they go, well, oh yeah, well, can we do that? We go, well, all we're going to do is sell your house. The only difference is, before we sell your house, we're going to have a separate bit of a contract that says I'm going to put my money into a house I don't own, and I just want security from you. If I put my money in your house, that I'm going to be okay to get it back. We don't use the word assisted sale. And that seems reasonable. If someone said that to you, wouldn't you go, yeah, that seems fair. It seems fair that you get your money back. So yeah. Yeah, I never make them use my solicitor. Yeah, but I do have solicitors I can recommend. So yeah, that's what I do.
Cool. Nick.
Nick, if you have a property that requires cash only when talking to an agent, is that a sign it's too late for an assisted sale? No, definitely not. It really, because sometimes agents use the cash only phrase either because it's not mortgageable, right? But this could be your opportunity to turn an unmortgageable property into a mortgageable one and make it therefore more sellable, right? So that's how I come in. I go, is there any reason they need the cash? That it can only be cash? Yeah, because isn't got a kitchen. It's fried. It's rubbish. And you go, okay. So if we could do something with the house to make it more mortgageable, wouldn't that make it appeal to more of the market? So it's just coming at people from a different end. So absolutely not, Nick. It's go back to my little couples model. It's what they want, and often the agent is standing between you and the seller, and I go, well, you can run this past them, but if we don't get them around the table, it's difficult to agree.
Amazing, thank you.
Yeah,